Hi, everybody. Tonight's the night. Yep, the debate. Is anybody going to be watching anything else tonight? I've got, I've got popcorn. I've got soda. I've got my phone so I can text everybody because it's going to be a show between Kamala Harris and oh God, what is his name? Donald Trump. Yeah, but today for you, I have a new trial. You are not going to want to miss this one. The explanation for this murder is interesting. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Rebecca, your host, and this is Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials so you have something to listen to while you're creating those masterpieces. Yep. So today, well, yesterday afternoon, after they picked the jury in Clermont, Florida. Yep, we're going back to Florida, the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah. And it's not that Florida has any more crime than anybody else. It's just I don't know if the camera crews live down there. Originally, the Long Crime Network was a Dan Abrams production. I think he's since sold the network, but it originated with trials in Florida, and then it kind of branched out after that to go wherever Court TV went. But it's not owned by Dan Abrams anymore. In any case, Clermont, Florida is in Central Florida. It's a little bit northwest of Orlando, but close enough that the victim in this case worked at Epcot. He worked at the spaceship Earth. Now, it's probably been about 100 years since I went on spaceship Earth, but I'm sure I've been on it at least once, probably more than once. It's that little ride that just kind of takes you up to that big, Epcot has that big globe, and you go up. And anyway, Michael Shaver, the victim in this case, he worked there. He was also a pilot. He met Laurie Shaver when they were very young, and they married very young, and they had some children. But they had a very tumultuous relationship. And from the sounds of it, Laurie liked other men. Now, in 2014, they separated. He moved out and moved back in 2015. Yeah. Now, according to the defense, I'm recapping the opening statements, and so I might mix in the story a little bit here, but where it makes sense. According to the defense, it was a very violent relationship. That Michael had, how did he put it? There was physical and violence. He was very possessive, combative, destructive, and on multiple occasions she got injunctions against him, restraining orders. And at the time of the alleged murder, which was November 7th of 2015, he was not supposed to be in the home. At this point, I guess she had gotten a restraining order and he was not supposed to be there. Also at this point, she's dating another man. Yep. So on November 7th of 2015, let me just back up a little bit. During their marriage, living in this home in Clermont, they decided that they like to do these family projects, and in the backyard, they were digging up the ground to build a duck pond. And according to the defense, at some point, this project just got to be very tedious, and they sort of abandoned the project, leaving the ground dug up. So on November 7th of 2015, Michael, and this is according to one of Michael's coworkers, Michael and his wife Laurie went to a tractor pull with the kids. Hot damn. Woohoo! A tractor pull. Good Lord. Okay. So he met up with them there, and he said they seemed very, there was a lot of tension between the two of them. You could tell. Obvious tension. And that's the last time this coworker ever saw Michael. Although he got some texts from him later on, and we're going to hear this guy's testimony. But he texted him the next day, like, "Are you okay? Everything okay?" He didn't get any response. That was November 8th. On November 9th, he texts him again, and he gets a response back saying, "I'm working on my marriage. Leave me alone." So the guy backs off. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to leave you alone." Then on November 10th, he worked 12-hour shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So November 10th, he doesn't show up for work, doesn't call, no show. No. November 11th, same thing. No call, no show, doesn't show up for work. So his boss, John, sends him a text and says, "Hey, what's going on?" And he gets a response saying, "I'm not coming to work. I'm having issues at home, and I'm in Georgia, and go ahead and fire me." Okay. Then there's going to be this same guy that met him at the tractor pull, Frank Merrick. He decides, I'm gonna go to their house, you know, and see what's going on. I don't want to keep texting him and bothering him if he's trying to work on his marriage. Let me just go over and say hi. So he knocks on the door. The defendant answers, and he's like, "Hey, where's Michael?" And she's like, "He's in Georgia. He left, packed up and left, went to Georgia." In fact, one of his coworkers, Robert Mercado, picked him up and drove him to Georgia because you could see, and Frank will testify that his vehicle was there. Michael's vehicle was there, but it had a flat tire. So the defendant told him that they had an argument and that he left. So after this, the defendant starts selling off Michael's property, his guns, tools, whatever it was he had. She starts selling it. So we're going to hear during this trial from Robert Mercado, the co-worker she said drove him to Georgia. And apparently he worked at Epcot as well, but not on the spaceship Earth ride. He was on a different ride. And he was texting Michael Shaver because Michael was supposed to be hosting this kind of Thanksgiving party at his house for his coworkers. And he was texting him, "Hey, is it still on? What's going on?" And he's not getting a response after several texts. And then he finally, after many texts, gets a text that says, "Leave me alone. I'm working on my marriage." And he is also going to testify that at no time ever did he go to Michael Shaver's house and pick him up and drive him to Georgia or drive him anywhere. No, I did not do that. Then we're going to hear from another coworker that never heard from him after November 7th. Then we'll hear from several family members who would have regular contact with Michael Shaver, but they never heard from him after November 7th. In person, like verbally over the phone or in person, nobody heard from him after November 7th. All they got were Facebook posts and texts. So who is sending these Facebook posts and texts or making these Facebook posts and texts? The evidence is going to show that it's going to be linked through their IP address. Everybody has an IP address. Like I've got one for my house. My computer shares it. My phone shares it. My sister's phone shares it. Everything is on the same IP address. So through that, they're going to link it to her. Then we're going to hear from a guy named Scott Amatuccio. He's a family friend, and he realized he had seen him for a while. And through Facebook, he saw that they had this concrete slab poured into the backyard. So he's like, "Yeah, something's not right here." So he calls the police and he says, "Can you go over and do a wellness check on my friend? Just make sure he's okay." So the police go over there, knock on the door. "Hey, Laurie, where's Michael?" And this is February 16th of 2018. 2.5 years later, like nobody's heard from this guy. And I haven't heard from my daughter in a couple of years either. Maybe I should have a wellness check done. I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to hear from Detective Corey Anderson. And he questioned her. He went over there and he said, "Hey, where's your husband?" And she says, "Oh, we're separated. He picked up and left. He just packed up and he left, and I have no idea where he is." So he says, "Well, can I just take a look around the property?" And she's like, "Yeah, go ahead." So he sees this concrete slab in the backyard, and now it's got like a fire pit built on it. But there's a depression in the concrete. And according to the prosecution, the state is saying that if you see a depression where a body's been buried, it's because the body has decomposed. It's a loss of mass and the concrete sinks down. So March 9th of 2018, they execute a search warrant to dig up this property. First, they take out ground penetrating radar, and there is something there. So they start digging. First, they got to tear apart the fire pit. Then they slowly, and we heard about this in the the Chad Daybell case. They slowly unearth. They have to sift through everything as they're unearthing. What they eventually find, which is a body. They first come across a humerus bone, which is part of your arm. And after that was all on the 9th of March. It got late. Once they found this humerus bone, they decided to shut everything down. They'll come back next day when it's light outside again. They put armed vehicles all around the place so that nobody would disturb this site. And they go back the next day. They find a blue tarp. I don't know if it was within the tarp, but anyway, almost a full skeleton they're able to put together. So skeletal remains, socks, boxer shorts, and a green ratchet taped type strap. And when I hear that, I'm thinking like the kind that you would put to load something on the back of your truck, like one of those straps that fold down, wrapped around the remains. So by this time, the victim's father, Michael Shaper's father, he comes up or down from Georgia. He's living in Georgia. He comes down from Georgia to watch this excavation process. And a crime scene investigator says, "Can we swab your mouth for DNA?" He's like, "Yeah," because they need to identify this body. So they take the humerus, they get DNA from the humerus, they compare it to Michael's father's DNA, and of course, it's a relative. And so it's Michael Shaver. And that confirmed his identity. Anyway, they do an autopsy. He died of a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. There was no exit wound, and that's important, the back of the head. No other trauma on his body. Well, and I don't know how you would know that because there's no body. You've just got a skeleton, no fractures. But, he could have had, I don't know, no trauma. Anyway, I mean, he had bruising and stuff, but you would not know that 3 years later. But they did recover the projectile in his skull, and they sent that to a forensic lab for analysis. Then, going back to the defendant selling all his property, they tracked down a gun that she owned that was pink and black. They have pink handguns? Nobody ever told me this. What? I gotta have one. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want a handgun. Pink and black handgun. She sold it to this guy. The guy turned it over to the police. They compared, it was a 38 caliber. The projectile that was recovered from the skull was a 38 caliber. They compare these, and apparently we're going to find out from the firearms analysis that it was inconclusive. There weren't enough markings that they could definitively say that bullet came from that gun. It could have been fired from that gun because it's 38. The gun's a 38, but we don't know that. We won't know that for sure. Then there's a person named Travis Filmer that she was having an affair with back in, after. This is so confusing. At the time of the murder, she's having an affair with a guy named Jeremy Townsend. But in September of 2016, she's now in a relationship with this guy named Travis Filmer. And he had moved in, and she might even be married to him at this point. She has a different last name. It's not Shaver anymore. It's formally Laurie Shaver. So he moved in, and he and his brother, they find a receipt from Home Depot where he rented a concrete mixer. This is in September 2016, so 10 months later. And him and his brother poured concrete. Then, just to discuss this Jeremy Townsend guy, their affair started in, she meets him in a park in September or October of 2015. And we're not really positive when they started having an affair. The state is saying they didn't start having an affair till December of 2015, which is, I'm assuming, is what Jeremy's going to take the stand and say. And it's important why he's saying that. He is going to tell us that the defendant said to him, "Hey, I'm divorced." And at some point during their relationship, she wanted him to leave his wife. And he's like, no, I'm not, he didn't see it as being that serious. It was more like just a sexual thing for him. And he decided he was going to go back and work out things with his wife. Well, she said, if you don't break up with your wife, I'm going to expose the affair. She gave him an ultimatum. Well, several months after that, his wife, who works at an elementary school, and we're going to hear her testify, she gets some flowers from Michael Shaver. Now, Michael's dead. Guys, he's dead. And the note on the flower says, check your Facebook. And lo and behold, she checks the Facebook, and there's screenshots of texting between her husband and Laurie Shaver and photographs of her husband and Laurie Shaver. Yeah. And then when the police looked at Laurie Shaver's bank account, they found out, and Michael had a separate bank account. They kept separate bank accounts, but the flowers were paid for out of her bank account. Then they pulled the call records for the victim and for the defendant. Michael Shaver's call records showed no outbound calls from his phone after November 7th. Laurie's phone showed no calls to or from Michael Shaver after November 7th. Wow. So the state ends their opening by saying, use your common sense. And they're saying that because they don't have any direct evidence. Everything they have is circumstantial. And the defense will point that out. So the defense talks about how she grew up with him. They married very young, multiple injunctions. At the time of the murder, he was not supposed to be in the home. She had started dating Jeremy Townsend. And on the day in question, Michael had come over and started battering Laurie Shaver. And they have a young daughter named Isabel. Now, I don't know how old Isabel is. He kept saying young daughter. He says she has her own attorney. Her name's Isabel. I don't know how old she was, but in any case, she hears this commotion. She goes into the room where this altercation is taking place. Michael is there with his foot on Laurie's head, holding her down on the ground with his foot. So Isabel runs out and goes and gets the handgun and comes back. Now, they say everything kind of happens very quickly, but at the same time she's coming back with this handgun, Jeremy enters the room, takes the handgun from her. Now, it wasn't clear to me whether Isabel is going to say that she shot him or not. There was only one gunshot, single gunshot. Well, There's only one wound. I mean, she could have fired the gun and it didn't hit him. I don't know. Jeremy grabs the gun. He fires single shot into the man's head. Now, this is according to the defense. This is apparently what Isabel is going to testify to. Now, I have heard rumors that she was 5 years old at this time, which would make her like 15, 16 now, 14, 15. I don't know. Listen, I can't remember what I did at 5 years old. I can't remember what I did this morning before I got up. I don't have a memory of when I was 5 years old. But I guess if you go through trauma like that, you might remember it. I don't know. So after Jeremy Townsend shoots Michael Shaver in the head, he tells them to get out. He'll take care of everything. So she assumes he took care of everything. Yep. Took care of everything. Now, this is what doesn't make sense to me. And I've heard the state say, use your common sense. Well, common sense tells me something's gone. Why wouldn't you just call the police? If he was battering you and this was all in defense of you were scared for your life, why didn't you call the police? You let your boyfriend take care of it? What was she thinking? I don't know. So anyway, the defense, again, they point out circumstantial case. You're not going to hear any evidence of fingerprints on the tarp. No evidence of her DNA anywhere. Nope. So the defense concludes by saying the state is not seeking justice. They are seeking a verdict. Yep. Now, the defense, before they rest, slips in to the jury. We can infer that Jeremy Townsend will be testifying here with a negotiation with the state. And I'm like, oh, he did not just say that to the jury. Yes, he did. And of course, the state objects, they go sidebar, and he comes back and he wraps everything up. But the jury heard it. And I'm sure in cross-examination of Jeremy Townsend, he's going to be asked, do you have a plea deal? Do you have a deal with the state in exchange for your testimony here? This is going to be a good one, you guys. Yeah, stay tuned. So that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. Tomorrow I'll have the first day of testimony. It didn't get started till late afternoon yesterday because, like I said, they had to pick the jury first. So evidence is in full swing today. I saw a little bit of it this morning, and there was an argument over the exclusionary rule and witnesses sitting in the courtroom yesterday that shouldn't have been in the courtroom, and whatever. You invoked it. No, I didn't invoke it. Or, I invoked it. No, you didn't invoke it. That whole argument this morning. Poor judge had to wake up to that. I would have been like, coffee first before we have an argument. All right. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.